Homer's Odyssey, a timeless journey of self-discovery. Today we're going to have the honor of interviewing Yaron Barzilai, who's the National Director of New Acropolis in India. He's going to tell us about the struggles of Odysseus and his trials of going back home to Ithaca, the hero's path towards himself. So join us so that you can learn more about this great timeless myth of New Acropolis also and outside, because it's a timeless story that tells us about our own heart and our own path. Let us invite our guest to join us. There you go. Just a little bit before we start. He's joining us in just a moment now. We're going to hear more about the great myth of the Odyssey. It's actually a myth that I enjoy a lot. It's part of my story as well. The first talk I gave in Acropolis many years ago. So, Yaron, I'm going to ask you to join as New Acropolis Mumbai so that you can join us in the live. Let's try with your personal profile. Hi, Yaron. Welcome.
Hi, Melissa. I join as New Acropolis Mumbai.
Perfect. You're live now. It's so good to have you this afternoon, Yaron. It's really an honor and a pleasure to interview you this afternoon.
The pleasure is mine. Here it's not afternoon, but it's okay.
I know.
Yeah.
Yaron is joining us from India, so it's quite late there at the moment now, right? It's 9:30 now.
Yeah, just 9:30.
There we go. So before we start and actually get into the topic of today's live, it's going to be on Homer's Odyssey in a timeless journey of self-discovery. Let me introduce you to our speaker this afternoon. I'm going to tell you a little bit about his bio before we actually get into the work. So as a passionate philosopher, Yaron began his journey with New Acropolis as a member in Tel Aviv branch in Israel in 1998. He founded a new chapter of the organization in Jerusalem 2 years later. In 2006, he was appointed National Director of India North. Over the years, as a founder of New Acropolis in India in the North, his main area of study has been India's rich human heritage and how it can actually offer this contribution to the universal human progress relevant to our times today. He helped launch an initiative in 2017 called Empowering Real Change. This initiative highlighted the need for bringing about sustainable change in our world by strengthening ourselves internally. As a promoter of investigative philosophical works, Yaron has authored several articles on daily practice and implementation of timeless philosophical ideas. He also commissioned The Acropolitan, a quarterly magazine on philosophy, culture, and volunteering, which has been published for over a decade. He has also been a lecturer in various organizations and forums, also always promoting the ideals of universal fraternity. So that's a little bit of our guest. Welcome again, Yaron. And it's really a pleasure to have you this afternoon, this evening. And perhaps let us start, Yaron, with a question on why the Odyssey. we often invite the teachers from New Acropolis from various countries, and we ask them to bring a topic to the table that moves them, that talks to their hearts, something that really has to do with who they are. So first of all, before we actually get into the work of Odysseus and his journey as a hero, tell us why the Odyssey, why Odysseus, and why does it speak to your heart?
Yes, it does. Beside being a masterpiece, on an epic scale for almost 3,000 years, and maybe more, because we don't really know if Homer really wrote it, or maybe it could be a generic name, like in other cases. And it's really interesting. See, we are just about to, if I'm not wrong, this summer there is a movie, another one of Christopher Nolan, about the Odyssey. So why? There's a lack of material, or is the story is so relevant? So beside the being a masterpiece, I think the true power of it is that it is a myth, the power of mythology, the true heritage of humanity. Contrary to what we say today when we use the term mythology or myth, then it's understood as something unreal. A myth is a tale of a deeper truth. Being a deeper truth, on the surface, it's always legendary, a magnitude that seems to be unreal, but it touched something so profound. And as a myth, it has many layers, like any other myth. So we can understand it, we can analyze it, we can learn from it psychologically, obviously, also from a culture point of view, social point of view, cosmic point of view, astrological. We can find trace of it also in this story. But as philosophers, I think maybe the most important part is what it tells us as human beings. And one of the most profound keys that we're familiar with in our School of Philosophy in Acropolis is that the myth reflects the inner world of men. So it tells the tales of every one of us. So every one of us is Odysseus. Doesn't matter the gender also. In one way, the scenery, the different characters might even exist in history. It's like the Gita in India, or other such epic stories. But on another hand, it could be seen as reflections of things that happen inside of us. So all this encounter with antagonists and guides and scenery that change is like a map road to tell us something, some secret, some learning about ourselves. And what do you do when you encounter such a map road? Just like a tourist that go to a new place, to a new site, just before sightseeing, either on Google Map today, or as in the old days, you see a map. The first things that you need to locate is where you are, the starting point. And maybe that's important things to find ourselves within the myth. And because each one of us can find himself within the myth, doesn't matter where, it can tell us something about what we are about to face, how to face it, what's the purpose, where we are coming from, where we are going. And I think because of that, it's keep being relevant, not just for the present, but also for our future.
Thank you so much for that opening answer. I was just recalling that once I read a book that talked about storytelling, the value of storytelling, and how old cultures and traditional societies They would tell stories as a way of people making sense of what was happening inside of themselves with a healing purpose. So they would find meaning behind those stories and find a way out of their own struggle. And my question to you would be, if myths are so powerful for us to understand ourselves, each myth at the same time carries its own message and its own way of being. And why Odysseus? What is special about Odysseus? What is particular about him and different from Hercules, different from Achilles, different from other great heroes in mythology? What does he bring to us in his myth as a main message or as something that is particular to his nature?
Well, first of all, we need to take in account that the Odyssey is also a story of return, nostos, returning home. Maybe in a way we are all yearning to come back home. Of course, we need to understand what the meaning of home here. And particularly for Odysseus, yes, he's a different kind of a hero. And interestingly also, he has some interaction both with Achilles and even Hercules when he go to the land of the dead. And in a way, there is a continuation between the older version of hero and the new version of hero. So, well, Odysseus in the Iliad, before the Odyssey start, is already show himself as an intelligent person. Yes, he is the one who finally managed to overcome Troy through cunning, through what the Greek would call metis, this quality of intelligent, cunning, sharp mind, not to the sheer force. And the whole story of returning home is really a test for his intelligence. So he was already having the quality of sharp mind, but he, in a way, need to transform that. If you remember what Einstein said, that intelligence is measured by the way we correspond with changes. The whole story is facing different tasks and changes, circumstances, and the way that he responds to it really tests his quality of intelligence, the quality of his consciousness. Every trial bring some challenge that challenge something internally, because we said that we can understand the myth as reflections of the inner world. His friends, the monster that he meet, just like Theseus and the Minotaur. Also the guides, and maybe even the gods himself, are internal to him. And the entire voyage is a voyage of a hero that what really put to test are his inner qualities and his mind, his consciousness, in a way purifying his mind until he's able to come back home, transform. I think in the Iliad is obviously one of the protagonists, but the test that he has is more on the horizontal. We need to conquer the things outside, where the Odyssey, the real voyage that he has is internal, not just external. And so a process of transformation.
That's so interesting, Yaron, because you're bringing Odysseus as a hero that has to do with consciousness and intelligence.
Right.
And at the same time, the book talks about him being cunning. And there is a difference between being cunning and being intelligent, right? There is an Odysseus that goes and an Odysseus that returns, who's a different man. What would be the difference of being cunning and being real intelligent? The Odysseus that goes back and the Odysseus that comes back more purified. What is the difference between that Odysseus that goes to Troy and fights the war and wins the war, and the Odysseus that comes back more purified. What's that difference, and what's the relationship between the cunning and the intelligent?
In this case, I'm not sure that cunning is so negative. Yes, it's another way to say is that he's also been prudence, and he's making his way through his strategy and cunning. Yes, but he changed. It changed in his qualities. It changed with he's changed. So in a way, nothing changed because he come back home, and we can understand home as coming back to himself. Yeah. But at the same time, we can say that everything changed. So the use of intelligence here depends on the identity of the person and his qualities and his virtues. If it's intelligent in the service of the lower, the greed and all those defects that represent the lower ego, proud, for example, I mean, that's one of the reasons that it took him another 10 years to come back home. If he kept this proud in bay, if he would not challenge the Cyclop Polyphemus, that was we didn't know that, yes, the son of Poseidon. He managed through cunning and through his intelligence to get his way out, right? Most famously using the trick of not revealing who he is and telling the giant or the Cyclops that his name is nobody. And so when this Cyclops is calling for help, he says to his friend who's come running that nobody is killing me. And so they think that he's just got mad and they don't help. But after he's able to escape, he can't stop his pride. Yeah? He shouts to the Cyclops, just know that it was me, Odysseus, that did this to you out of pride. And that allowed, of course, the Cyclops to speak to his father and request his help. And so it was Poseidon that challenged him for 10 years and make his process back prolonged for so long. And in that voyage, well, maybe the first thing that you need to lose is this proud, that doesn't allow him to use the right intelligence, the ability to discern. What in India we call viveka, to separate milk and water, the ability to see right. It's not the intelligence of a calculative mind, which maybe was the character of Odysseus before, but he has to go through a profound change in order to use a more natural intelligence that I can characteristic as being connected, to conquer his individual. For example, one decisive moment happened when he go to the world of the dead. And in a way, it is there that he opened his eyes, that he's able to know, he get the right perspective. It is there that he meet those who are already dead and have the perspective about life. It is there that he hear the word of the seer. It is there that he knows what is ahead of him, what's going on. It is there that he knows why the whole voyage takes so long. Yeah, but to go to the underworld also means to lose something of the lower ego. As it says that the first step to the path to wisdom is going through a very small and narrow gate. That's meant to be humble. So this is one of the things that he loses, yes, that change.
That's so interesting, Yaron, where you're bringing, because first of all, you're saying being kind is not bad. He was smart, and that was very good. It took him out of trouble. But at the same time, perhaps he did not have so much purity to see beyond and to see through. And then you
That's
told
right.
us that he went in the underground and he found this other vision where he was actually able to go back home. So you're talking about an intelligence of being something that has to do with a more profound vision of life. So
That's
tell us
right.
a little bit more about this faculty, this higher faculty of intelligence. And I believe there perhaps Athena also plays a role because she's the patron goddess of Odysseus, right? She's behind his struggle as well. So, as a seekers, as philosophers, we want to find this inner vision. What will be a way of developing more of that intelligence, that higher faculty inspired by the goddess of Athena and that underground vision of going and seeing beyond? Tell us, what would be a possible way to develop that?
Well, it required time. It required time. And one need to accept that. I remember my teacher who heard it from his teacher, who heard it from his teacher, which I believe was the founder of New Acropolis, Professor Levaraga, said something very interesting. He said, nothing that is achieved without time will last, meaning time itself will destroy. What is achieved without time. So to go through this process of transformation, we need to accept that it takes time, but not just chronological time. In a way, we need to turn this time into from time of chronos, the chronological time, into the time of kairos, the quality time that has meaning. And so the voyage of the hero, in this sense, is an everyday process, yes, day after day after day of falling and rising up and falling and rising up, and the struggles and learning from the mistakes and not being afraid to have a mistake, because I believe this kind of intelligence is not a matter of a rational mind, but something else. Again, we can take inspiration from the tradition in India that speak about the difference between kama manas, the lower mind, or the mind that is ruled by desires, and see how beautifully here in this journey, Odysseus had to shed away those desires and instinct of the lower, to hear the voices of the many, as it says, in order to hear the voice of the one. The ability to discern, the ability to choose, but not to discern and choose hypothetically. When we sit in a coffee place, like the statue of Rodin, I'm sorry, it's a very good example for me of how philosophers should not be. When the head is so heavy and curl inside, but to be a philosopher is to live the adventure of life. And from my point of view, at least, that's why it's so appealing to me. The whole story is really finding that quality that defined us as human, manas, yes, human being. And it's very interesting because, see, we live today in an age where we speak about artificial intelligence. It's a great, amazing tool. Really, nothing against technology. We use it, whether we like it or not. It has its all pros and cons, and merit and demerit, and things to pay attention to, an ethical question, and so on and so forth. But it's here, and it's a great tool. But maybe we are making the mistakes when we call it intelligence, artificial or not, because frankly,